Thank you all for being with us. Um, this virtual roundtable discussion is titled Advancing Ocean Justice, Community-Centered and Locally Led Solutions. Um, I am Francisco Paco Ollervides. I'm the Director of Ocean Climate Justice at Ocean Conservancy. I'd like to thank the organizers of CHOW for this opportunity to share some of our experiences and lived expertise. There's an interpretation button if you should need it. Existe un botón de interpretación para traducción simultánea al español. Um, feel free to use it. Um, we are aiming to have a very engaging and highly interactive session. So both the chat box will be monitored. We're also going to share a little pre-survey to hear your general knowledge or expectations about ocean justice, but we really are trying to gauge where ocean justice should aspire to become. And at the end, I'm also going to share a URL of maybe lessons learned. Both the survey I'm putting now in the chat box can be filled out at your leisure, and you can be as anonymous as you hope for. Um, and so I am now allowing myself the honor of introducing my esteemed panelists. And after a brief framing, I'll ask each of them to what we refer to in Mexico as their pearls of wisdom, some of their high-level best practices. And if your question is not answered, please make sure you put in your email address and we can follow up. So no specific order. I want you all to meet Queen Quet, chiefess for the Gullah Geechee Nation. Dr. Trisha Kahalani Watson, founder of Honua Consulting and vice president to Aina Momona. David Riera, doctor fellow at Florida University, International University, and Ocean Advisory Committee member at Hispanic Access Foundation. Raimundo Espinoza, founder for Conservación ConCiencia. Mariana del Valle Prieto Cervantes, director of strategic initiatives at GreenLatinos. And Claudia Pineda Tibbs, manager of sustainability and operations, conservation science at Monterey Bay Aquarium. And also Adriana Guerrero, the executive director at Brown Girl Surf. So in August 2021, Meridian Institute and Equitable partners, they were charged with supporting the development and refinement of the Ocean Justice Advocacy Group, which was a natural continuation of the advisory role most of these panelists played on last year's Capitol Hill Ocean Week planning. Ocean Conservancy has been a collaborator and a supporter through the entire process. And Ocean Conservancy, of course, defines ocean justice as the fair and equitable distribution of both the benefits of the ocean's bounty and the burdens of its complex care. So we set to galvanize our collective actions for a more just and equitable ocean work and Great Lake policy. We intentionally focused on place-based locations to support and uplift our members. We agreed on a few principles, and actually the first one is the title of our presentation. We agreed on community-centered, locally led solutions must influence ocean, coastal, and Great Lakes policy. We also said we must ensure community access to ocean policy governance. Communities must be part of co-design, co-implementation of ocean policy. We wanted to expand the access of resources, benefits, and opportunities from a healthy ocean and Great Lakes. In our principles, we said we will elevate indigenous and local knowledge alongside Western science and research methods, and we're intentionally shifting the diversity of ocean leadership. So our two key goals, like I said, were to support our member organizations by building this on-the-ground efforts to build power, centering people and nature. We have a nascent small grant program, and we're supporting some local events of our members. And the second one was to share our lessons learned from the community's needs at local and regional levels. So as I guide this courageous discussion, I encourage attendees to reflect on how they could answer the survey. And please feel free to, again, share in the chat box as things come along. So the first question and I'm just going to go maybe on what folks show up on my screen is from your perspective, and I'll ask Trisha first. How do concepts of justice and equity shape the most urgent ocean policy issues you're advocating or concerned about? So, what actions could address injustices and inequality that shape those issues?
Well, I think for us, thank you, Paco, and very nice to see everybody and have this time with you. So for our organization, which is a 100% Indigenous-led organization on a rural island in Hawaii, our primary concern is just making sure that Indigenous people, particularly those without federal recognition and other marginalized communities, are considered when we have, growing ocean regulations and policies. Too often, regulations which are well-intended and important insofar as protecting marine resources will adversely affect small communities that rely on the ocean for subsistence, for fishing, for other things. So it's a very difficult challenge. It's important to balance it, but for us, it's just making sure that while we are supportive of ocean conservation, we are also making sure that the families that rely on the ocean have access to the resources they need. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I mean, based out of Florida, right? I can tell you that being raised here, everything from access to our beaches, access to our fishing holes, just access, that's one of the things that I think is huge in our community. As we know, the Black and brown population is one of the people that find therapy in environmental spaces and are one of the least accessible to these spaces. I intentionally moved down here to Homestead, one, to see how development is impacting food sovereignty, but on the other side, being closer to our national parks, being close to the water. My godparents and my mom sacrificed a lot just to take me to the beach and for me to learn how to swim. So I think that for the Hispanic population, to put it frankly, going to the beach, being heard, being vocal, coming to our parks, I think that that's fundamentally where we need to be. We need to share and be happy and find joy in our stories, especially when we see each other on the beach, because a lot of stuff is not happening in equitable spaces for all of us.
Thank you, David. Adriana?
Yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. So at Brown Girls Surf, we are a community of girls, women, and gender expansive surfers of color who love the ocean, and we also work to take care of it and make the coast accessible to all, in California specifically. And so at Brown Girls Surf, we've been advocating for both coastal access and surf equity, which means that the communities who have been limited to access to surfing in the coast, as David just mentioned, namely Black, Indigenous, and people of color folks, and that's due to systemic racism and other oppressive factors, are prioritized in a new system that breaks down those systemic barriers to surfing and the coast, right? So people can go, enjoy, heal, find joy, celebration, all the ways that we find comfort in being in the ocean. And so some of the barriers that we've experienced at Brown Girls Surf and are working towards to break down is the inequitable beach permitting systems that have prevented Brown Girls Surf and other organizations like us from running program at the beach. And so due to these restrictive and exclusionary permitting processes, many nonprofits that serve underrepresented populations like brown girls, our community, we haven't been able to operate at state beaches throughout California. And so something that we've been able to accomplish and has been going on since 2018 has been working with the city and state level to influence land managers to consider equitable access and permitting systems. And so one of the things that we're excited about is that the success at the local level, while still the work continues, is now raising the awareness at the state level, and then also raising awareness on the federal level that will impact coastal areas throughout the United States, hopefully.
Thank you. I said there were pearls of wisdom, definitely. So far, so good. Claudia?
Gracias, Paco. Hi, everyone. I'm Claudia Pineda Tibbs. Pronouns are they, them, ella en español, located on the ancestral and unceded land of the Ohlone, Costanoan, Esalen Nation, also known as Monterey, California, with Monterey Bay Aquarium. As an aquarium, this is a very interesting question, and mostly because based on various studies that have been conducted at the museum and visitor cultural organization serving side of institutions, the public continues to regard museums, zoos, science centers, and aquariums as highly trustworthy, ranking second only to friends and family. So we're significantly more trustworthy than researchers, scientists, NGOs in general, news organizations, sometimes government, corporations, businesses, and social media. So we have a responsibility as an aquarium, as a public aquarium, to have a positionality that does include ocean justice and equity in our policy initiatives and efforts. Also the way in which we communicate out that information. And even though we sometimes hear people say, you need to stay in your lane, just show us the animals, show us the sea otters, that is detrimental to systemic change. Besides what all of these amazing panelists have already mentioned in regards to access and who gets to receive that level of access, it's also important to keep in mind the cultural aspect of the ocean, the respite that it gives our people, and also the opportunity for us to bond over what the ocean brings and means to us, because we have been so described as this monolithic group in some cases, that we all come from this one area, but the way in which we engage with the ocean is so different. So it's important for us to have authentic storytellers, like everybody here in this space, to be able to have that connection about a place that means so much to us and that has so much at risk, and especially because it is the heart of our climate system.
Thank you, Claudia. Queen Quet.
Peace and blessings. Gladi Fideo with all the 100 children one more again from the Gullah Geechee Nation, as 100 children can see. Medea in the ocean and thing like that upon the sea islands. And so the Gullah Geechee Nation literally exists in the ocean. We have a chain of sea islands from Jacksonville, North Carolina to Jacksonville, Florida. So anybody's policies can only be equitable and just if they are not simply negatively impacting just us who are indigenous to this coastline. And so in all the work that I do, including the work that we do as OJAG, it is all about ensuring that people realize that there is a historical legacy along the oceans that involve cultural heritage communities. And so that all policymakers need to advance that by engaging with those of us who have the traditional knowledge about how to live in balance in and with the ocean and with Mother Earth. Because as long as we nurture Mother Earth, she will nurture us. And as I often tell people, the land that we family, the waterway that we bloodline. So if you look at the waters, the ocean as part of your bloodline, you would never poison it, and you wouldn't create policies that cause overbuilding into the shorelines of the ocean, because the overbuilding is usually what then denies the access to the native people, the indigenous people, the traditionalists that have birthed their children and raised their children, literally here within every droplet of what makes up the ocean. And so for me, it's about being a part of groups like this, sessions like this, wherein we put a drop of our knowledge out there every day so that it ripples around the world the way that the ocean does, and connects those of us who have the passion and the persistence to make sure that there is equity in the future, that there's equality in the future, because those two things don't mean the same thing, and that it's not just us fighting for it, but that all of us in the world are fighting for it. And that's why I'm here today with my beloved OJAG family. I love y'all. Keep the fight up.
Thank you, Queen. Thank you, Queen. Mariana, and then Raimundo.
Thank you. How do I follow that? I guess just by starting, I'm in gratitude of sharing space with amazing ocean champions that you've already heard from. I admire and look up to all of you and love to co-conspire with all of you as well. For me, I think as I look at this question and I think about my lived experience as a brown immigrant woman that saw not just experience and have those lived experience of true barriers to the ocean, like many have already said, that are essential for our physical, our mental well-being as human beings. But also what I have heard from our Green Latino members, from our Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, environmental and conservation champions out there. And so when I look at this, I think about that lived experience and to really address the issues that we have with our ocean, we really need to start this shift and decolonize our mindset to start that change. That's really rooted in colonization and oppression and racism. So for that, we need to start listening to our frontline communities, start listening to our Black and Indigenous leaders who are living with this, and they are fighting not just for the waters, for the ocean, for the environment, but for people, for us. And that really needs to start to happen. We need to start respecting that ancestral knowledge and putting that and integrating that into all of our policy changes and in the way that we are within community. And then the second thing I would say is we need to really look at our natural resources, our water, our ocean, the life that it brings, and recognize that it's been objectified. And we need to start seeing our resources as relatives, not resources, and really respect and give gratitude for those resources.
Definitely. Water should not be a commodity. Raimundo.
Yeah. Mariana was worrying how to follow that. And I got to follow all these people that are amazing. Yeah, so Raimundo Espinoza, director for Conservación ConCiencia here in Puerto Rico. So I mean, first of all, yes, concur with everybody. This is just, I mean, these folks are amazing. So I can't, I don't know what much more to add really. But there's one thing that I was thinking while everybody was speaking as well, because everyone touched on everything that I was thinking. I was like, yeah, that's right. And then I was like, oh, immigrant as well. And then Mariana, I was like, yes, that's exactly. And then I was thinking, I was like, you know what? Going back to the very first thing, and I think Trisha said it as well, and like what perspective, what perspective is really urgent to policy, right? To me is that a lot of these things that, us folks getting marginalized by, or the brunt of the negative impacts of a lot of the policies that are moving forward for ocean conservation and ocean justice. It's also that many times these traditional communities have many of the solutions that are just being overlooked. We're trying to reinvent the wheel sometimes. Many of these traditional coastal communities have been living sustainably for generations before. And so sometimes the answers that we're looking for are already there. We just marginalize them so much that we just we can't hear them and we can't see them. So that's one of those things that when we really begin to reach out to communities and to work with folks that have been put aside for such a long time and haven't been given a voice, we're also just putting aside many of the solutions we're still trying to look for. So that to me is one of those things that is really critical to policy, is that, that if in inclusion, we're not doing anybody any favors. We're expanding the possibility for solutions that already exist. And so it's not something that is being pushed or promoted from our side just because we want to be heard. That's part of it as well. It's also many times us right here have already been solving some of these problems that folks have been yelling about and not hearing. So that's what the only thing I think like that after this group of amazing folks have really put so much into that question. I mean, thank you, Paco, and It's very tough being going last. So at least I
Hey,
can have
you'll
a
go
good
first.
scenery, right?
You'll go first. One of the first ones in the next question, right?
Oh, that's
Just-
terrible
I-
too.
I'm going to reverse the order. So, thank you very much, and thank you all for staying very, very succinct. Again, a lot of very, very good points brought up. Definitely, we know that uplifting local traditional knowledge is the key. Is the key. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't. And that leads very well, right, to my second question. So, as to remain effective, ocean conservation advocates, which is our audience, and organizations, big and small, we have to move to deeper, more authentic, not transactional, but transformational relationships with communities. So, in your opinion, and I'll ask Ray first, how is this best accomplished?
All right, thank you, Paco. So okay, so to me, that can just be best accomplished by, sometimes we try to see how we work in communities. I mean, it's being in the community, being with the folks. We try to think it's hard to become transformational, but it just really requires time and honesty and transparency, which are things that are free and really simple. So I do feel it's just giving that time and respect to really ensuring you give the time to meet the community and to make sure that you're in their space, you're present there, you're ensuring that you're one of them, and again with the same respect and understanding that you can be in their space and they can be in your space. This is all of our space. To me, for it to be transformational, you really have to allow that trust to to allow for understanding, for that openness to flow, because I feel sometimes that when we talk about the transformative relationships, folks think in order to go deeper, it sounds complicated because like, how do you go deeper? It's like, no, we're not looking for marriage, we're not looking to be best friends, we're looking for that trust. And so sometimes just the simple act of being present, you want to work in communities, then be in a community, go to the community, invest in the community. And to me, that again, it can be straightforward in words, and then implementing it can be very difficult because it requires a lot of time. That's something that you have to invest time as well. And so again, those are my 2 cents on that. Is really just become embedded and allow for it to transform yourself by giving the time and transparency for that's okay.
With a demonstration of how to be inside the community. Thank you.
Well, it's being in there, right?
Yeah. Mariana, and thank you for people that are filling out their survey.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that was really great to see you giving that example. I fully agree with that. I think part of that relationship building is being in the community, breaking bread, laughing, crying together, really just building back our humanity and working in the speed of trust, as Raimundo was saying. And that, I will say, goes, I know there's a lot of people here in CHOW, and from NGOs to funders. So this also goes to funders, and really investing in all of these amazing people that are here speaking today and are doing and wearing different hats, doing things, really wanting to build capacity within their organizations. And oftentimes that's also something that's becoming a barrier for us. I'll speak for my organization, but really investing in that. What investing means is, it doesn't mean a stipend for a year. It means multi-year grants for operation support that are not tied to a whole lot of deliverables, and building that trust and going to that community and spending the time with the members that you're funding, and then also just in general, when being in community and looking, like we mentioned, folks have the solution, but we need to also compensate them for the time that they're putting into building and leading. So I'll stop there because I feel like I'm rambling.
No, you're good. 100%, 100%. Queen.
Yes, I think it's perfect that I'm following Mariana because she mentioned about the funding and several people have said that. And more often not, much of the funding comes from people that call themselves, or their organizations are called foundations, right? Foundations are poured first, but people think of it that way and then they think of the house on top. But really, you dig down usually. People that are good engineers, they usually dig down first before they pour the foundation. And so for me, one must take care of the root for heal the tree. No stable rooted tree has its roots above the ground. They're deep down. So if we're building relationships, we also have to dig down. When you dig down, you might think right now in your mind of dirt. You might think of dirt flying, being thrown different directions. Maybe some of it might be some dirty things that happened in the past. We might need to dig them up to uproot them and move them out in order for us to have a true solid foundation that can be sustained for multiple generations. Not a situation where you're only in a community as long as you can get the photo opportunity so that you can put that in your annual report to say that you work with a variety of people and the optics now look good. You actually have to do what everyone has said, fully invest in the community. And that means not only financially, but spiritually, emotionally, as well as scientifically, and with the varying other array of resources that that community says it needs. Not what you come in and say we need, but what we say we need. And then we have a fulfilling relationship that goes beyond simply a dollar exchange for a product. And so that means that even if you entered the door with a grant from a foundation, you're going to stay, even if that money starts getting lower. You're not going to say, I can't do anything, because you still have capital. You have human capital, you have spiritual capital, you have intellectual capital and capacity that you can still contribute. And will you do it as a volunteer? You often come to us and ask us to volunteer. Will you now do it as a volunteer? That's when we know for sure there is this thing you keep hearing us say, trust, that is built. And that trust has to be part of the foundation if we're going to build a house that's going to be sustained in the face of all the things coming up against the house in our communities. So that's critical to me. And I think that's part of the major journey.
I love the metaphors. Thank you. Rai, aren't you happy you're not following that? Okay, so
Now
Claudia.
I have to follow
Yeah.
it. But I mean, basically plus one, everything everybody said, underscoring everything that Queen said. And I think it's also important, depending on who you're representing, organization or political affiliation, to remain as humble as possible as you can, and remember that you are not always going to be the expert. And I'm saying that especially on behalf of organizations like mine, where we have the luxury of resources, we have capacity when it comes to human power. We have over 300 staff, but at the same time, a lot of people are not on the journey where they understand that relationships are not transactional. A lot of times we have people on our staff who say, what's the ask? What's the ask? Right now, there's no ask. Right now, it's about building relationships. Right now, it's about ensuring that we are being responsive to our community members, to our constituents in the state of California, our diverse constituents in the state of California. So it's really about listening. And also with that recognition that you are not always the expert in the room, is taking a step back. And it's not even about passing the mic. It's just moving far away from the stage, because taking up space is taking up space, period. So to be able to say, we have not been a part of all of this foundational work that you have, it's not a matter of like, teach us, but how do you want us to engage? Knowing that we have all of these resources, if you want us to engage, we are here to fight alongside you, not to fight with you or for you, but however you want us to be involved. And I think that's what's really important, is to recognize that coming in as, especially an organization that is, usually, and a lot of organizations like mine are white led, is that you have that capacity to come in with that white saviorism or parachute into a community or into a relationship, and that's where the damage is done. So in order to have this long-term change and commitment, it's really about everything Raimundo said, where it's taking time and it's building relationships. And then the last thing I want to say, Raimundo, me encantó your little gallo kikiri all in the background. That was fantastic. Thank you. And for y'all who don't speak Spanish, that was just me doing the Spanish version of a rooster, because we say kikiri.
Yes. Adriana.
Oddly enough, I don't mind going towards the end, because I have had like in the moment reflection and learning. And so I'm very honored to share space with you all, and just like, even though I'm a panelist, like the wisdom of pearls that you all are giving me is going to change a little bit what I thought I was going to say. So I echo what folks have said, and what I would add, just from my perspective and the way that we do the work at Brown Girl Surf, is building authentic relationships that are rooted in trust and love and joy, right? That's so much of our programming, is fostering a space for healing and joy. And the way that I approach it, and I think it's ironic that actually my title is executive director, because I don't believe that the direction comes from me. The way that I practice my leadership is that the direction is coming from the community. And so in my position, the way that I approach my leadership, it comes with a lot of listening, right? I don't have all the answers, nor do I think the answers should all come from me, right? And so I'm just a part of the community. I happen to be, which I just thought of this in the moment, as the executive advocate. My job and my role is to be the megaphone for the community. I'm listening what my staff need. I'm listening what our participants need. What do our youth need? And then I have the seat at the table where I say, okay, please add a 0 to that check, because then I can bring that to my community and create more opportunities, more programming. In thinking about how Brown Girl Surf, we recognize, and folks have mentioned, compensation, not just for staff, right? Like, I'm moving away from cost of living. I want a thriving wage for my staff, right? What does it look like for them to thrive and not just survive, especially in the Bay Area? And then thinking about how Brown Girl Surf will be moving to engage with our community intentionally, as we've just hired an advocacy specialist, is building out opportunities for one-on-ones, focus group, community surveys. And how are we compensating people for their time? Not just monetarily, but are we making sure that transportation is accessible if we're asking for in-person meetings? Or is there childcare provided? Is there language access for all of that? And so those are the things that I'm listening from the ground up. So when I am in these conversations with funders and other people in policy spaces, is yes, I need the resources, which most often is the money, because I need that to go throughout the community to engage, so we can be in the position to advocate in a way that is authentic and true to what our community is asking for us. And I will stop there. So thank you so much for being a part of this conversation, you all. It's really an honor to share space with you all.
Executive advocate. We like it. David?
Gracias, Paco. Well, I'm gonna +1 to everything everybody said so far. I really support that. I always really like seeing Rai's background. I'm with the rooster. It's morning somewhere. Entonces let's wake up. I know I can't follow Queen, but maybe I could plus ultra this. One, I think that our communities have suffered a lot of this idea of fitting in. We're past that. We need to start building places of belonging. There's a complete difference between being a fixture in a room that somebody talks about, a callback to tokenism, versus creating spaces and places where we all feel a sense of belonging. A sense of belonging is not ephemeral, it's deep, right? Because we're not just keeping our feet jammed in the door so that we could get in, we're keeping our feet jammed in the door so the rest of us could get in, right? Something very important that Hispanic Access has done for me from the beginning is eliminate that sense of that I have to fit in. I found a place of belonging. Really quick, I'm gonna read you the mission for those that haven't known. Hispanic Access Foundation connects Latinos and other partners with opportunities to improve lives and create an equitable society. One day, every Latino in America will enjoy good physical health and a healthy natural environment, a high quality education, economic success, and civic engagement in their community, with the sum of improving the future of America. As somebody that served 8 years in the Marine Corps and fought overseas in Iraq, this resonates with me, because just like in the Marine Corps, I found a place to belong because there was a shared esprit de corps, the spirit of the Corps. I find out in Hispanic Access that I have a place to belong, and now in OJAG, okay? Because something that we all know and we all talk about in OJAG that is very important is, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu.
Thank you, David, and hopefully this can happen in our lifetime. Trisha.
Thanks. Yeah, it kind of sucks going last, but that's okay. I also want to tag on to what Queen said. I mean, I think I really love the idea of roots, because I think we all know it's the plants with the deepest roots that best weather storms. And that's just the reality. I think we all need to move past sort of this DEI, Jedi diversity thing where we're just going to find brown people who nod along and agree with us. And that's diversity, because that's tokenism. So to me, to move past from the transactional to the transformational, people really need to understand, conservationists who have not necessarily worked a lot with the BIPOC community, you have to learn to embrace conflict and discomfort. Because for the people who are truly in community and truly have the knowledge, we are often coming for a space where we're not here to just nod along and agree with you. We're really trying to invest in change. So for people or groups that come in, if you just want people to nod along, and if you're going to kind of run off at the moment you feel offended or uncomfortable, don't waste our time. I think what we're looking for is people who are really vested. I mean, and vested, when you think about a marriage or a friendship, they're often tough, right? I mean, you're not going to stay married very long if you run away at the first fight. You have to learn to have enough resilience in the relationship and build a relationship that can weather alternative points of view, and sometimes acquiescing when you don't want to, and learning to hear and see perspectives that are different from your own. So to me, I really love what Queen said, because it is about just growing very deep roots, because the storm is here. And we just don't have much time to wait for people to get comfortable and all the time, right? We're here to do good work. And I think we're looking for people who are invested as us, as we are willing to be in them.
Thank you, Trisha. Thank you. This was a bigger panel than typical panels, but it's because I just don't say no to anybody, and I appreciate every single, these people. Ocean Justice Advocacy Group is relatively new, like I said, since August 2021, but we're growing in our membership. We welcome all of you that want to participate. My email contact will probably be in the program, our emails. And this is, I think it was a very worthwhile discussion. If anybody has questions, please put them in the chat box. Otherwise, we appreciate if that post survey, which is also very short, and that David in his academic way created, we will definitely look into that. But with that, I'll just be quiet for the next 2 minutes, and thank you all. And panelists, you can see the messages are coming in through the chat. Thank you, folks, and a shout out to folks that I recognized amongst our attendees, especially Kevin Bryan, who is one of our facilitators for OJAG, Russell Smith, another OJAG member, and some colleagues. How do we get more involved with OJAG? Ocean Justice Advisory Advocacy Group, OJAG. Just shoot me an email, please. Shoot me an email. I will put it in the chat box too.
And also everybody that fills out the post survey, if you send us our contact information, we'll definitely put you in contact with the information that y'all need.
Thank you all. Good evening. Mahalo. Gracias.
Buenas noches. Gracias.
Buenas noches. Gracias.
Thank you.
Buenas noches. Gracias.